Why do we long for exactly what has the power to wound us? And what if the person you feel the strongest pull toward is in truth the cruelest reflection of your oldest wound? And what if that love that freezes your body and ignites your soul is nothing but the disguise of trauma trying to resolve itself? Until you bring it to awareness, the unconscious will keep steering your life, and you will call it destiny. That phrase from Carl Jung is not advice, it is a warning, a lucid whisper rising from the depths of the psyche, a reminder that what we call passion may actually be the desperate movement of the soul struggling to rewrite itself. We have all been there, lying awake in the middle of the night, the glow of the phone on our face, waiting for a message that never comes, replaying every word, every touch, every silence, as if the answer were hidden in the fragments. But what we are trying to understand is not the other person. It is why that absence hurts so deeply, why the void feels so intimate, almost like home, and above all, why it seems like love. Jung does not offer us comfort, he offers us mirrors, and what we see in them is often disturbing. Desire, according to him, is not just a chemical spark, nor a hormonal dance. It is a summons from the unconscious. It is the anima or the animus, inner figures shaped by the very parts of ourselves we reject, projected outward in search of wholeness. Yet that search so often becomes a trap. The darkest truth about sexual attraction is not that it is too strong, but that it is too precise. With terrifying accuracy, it locates the fracture in your soul and slips through. So often we fall in love not with who stands before us, but with someone who unknowingly carries the traits of what we once lacked. We do not love the other. We love the possibility of rescuing the denied part of ourselves. And that may look like love, but in truth, it is only a wounded child trying to fix a broken story with borrowed pieces. What you felt as chemistry may only have been your trauma whispering, "This time, it will finally work." But will it really? Throughout this journey, we will descend with you into that abyss, without rails, without light at the tunnel's end. Because the only exit lies in staring directly into the darkness within, and finally grasping that desire does not always point toward love. Sometimes it points toward captivity. So close your eyes for a moment, breathe. Recall the person who once attracted you the most. Now ask yourself, was that truly love? Or was it the echo of your past screaming for recognition? Have you wondered why some gazes cut through you like a knife, while others barely graze? Why certain people drive you mad in minutes, while others, perhaps far more suitable, barely spark your interest? And most disturbing, why are we so often drawn to those who cannot love us, or worse, to those who can destroy us? There is a dangerous illusion in modern life, the belief that desire is a trustworthy compass, that where there is fire, there is truth. But Jung would say, where there is fire, there is shadow burning. Desire, especially the kind that paralyzes, consumes, and blinds, is rarely pure. Almost always it is a symptom, a cry of the soul seeking completion, even if that means repeating precisely what once wounded it. Picture this. You enter a crowded place. Dozens of people surround you. Some greet you warmly, others hardly notice. Then suddenly, one person's eyes meet yours, and something in you shifts. Your body tenses, your heart races. You try to act natural, but you feel pulled by something greater than your will. The name of that force is not love, but recognition. You recognize in that look something familiar, a known absence, a specific kind of coldness, distance, or calculated seduction. You do not fall for the person who sees you. You fall for the one who awakens in you a buried memory of what was missing. Jung called this projection. It is when the psyche, unnoticed, casts upon another all that is repressed within, our voids, hidden desires, unresolved traumas. We believe we are seeing them, when in truth we are only seeing ourselves, or rather, what is missing in us. That is why the wrong person can feel so right, because they reflect the precise missing piece of our emotional puzzle, even if what they ultimately bring is pain. So ask yourself, is your longing truly for them, or for the chance to finally feel chosen by what once ignored you? These dynamics are not obvious. They move in the shadows. You may say you want someone gentle, yet you are drawn to the one who makes you anxious. You may claim you want peace, yet only feel passion in chaos. Not because you are lying, but because your soul is unconsciously trying to rewrite the script. And that is where desire becomes a trap. Jung reminds us the unconscious has no sense of humor. It does not forget, it does not forgive, it does not simplify. It repeats. It repeats faces, patterns, sensations, until the pain becomes conscious or eternal. So no, what draws you is not always love. Sometimes it is karma. And karma, as Jung explained, is not punishment. It is repetition until you learn. Understand this. Emotionally healthy people do not ignite hurricanes within you. They do not leave you on edge. They do not create games. They do not fuel your anxiety. Do you know why? Because they do not activate your wound. And if your inner compass is broken, you will mistake that for boredom. You will think something is missing, but what is missing is not passion. It is the chaos you once learned to call love. That is where most lose themselves. Because passion born of trauma is addictive. It creates a dance of expectation and rejection, of ecstasy and abandonment. And if your nervous system was trained by pain, you will call that home. You may even say, "But I like intense relationships." Perhaps, but what you call intensity may only be desperation wearing perfume. So let me ask you gently, but firmly, whom do you love and why? Do not give me a name, give me the feeling. Is it calm or is it storm? Is it safety or pursuit? Do you feel seen or hunted? Jung invites us to look not only at who we desire, but at what within us is doing the desiring. Because if it is fear, emptiness, or the urge to prove something to someone long gone, then it is not love. It is a scream. And screams do not build homes. They only echo. Now understand this clearly. The most dangerous enemy is not outside, but within your own mind. That impulse that makes you explode. That anxiety that paralyzes. That attachment that weakens you. All of it follows a pattern. And unless you rebuild the mental model behind it, it will repeat again and again. But there is a way to change the foundation. With cold logic, with strategic awareness, with exercises in emotional retraining. There is something deeply unsettling about love, something beyond the body, the look, the touch. Because sometimes what you feel does not come from the person before you, but from an older, silent, darker place. A place where your soul projected what it once lost. Jung believed our psyche is inhabited by archetypal figures, deep structures that shape not only how we think, but how we love. Among them, two are especially dangerous when it comes to desire: anima and animus. The anima represents the unconscious feminine within man, and the animus in woman, the masculine dwelling in shadow. But do not confuse this with biological gender, for it is something far deeper. It is about what was repressed, denied, or never allowed to grow within you. Imagine this, a man who since childhood was taught to be rational, strong, and untouchable. Sensitivity, affection, surrender, all of that was treated as weakness. Those qualities never vanished. They were only pushed into the basement of the psyche, and there, in the darkness, they took form. An imaginary woman, emotionally charged, beautiful, and full of symbolism. That is the anima. And when that man meets someone who mirrors her in the outer world, he gets lost. It is not her he loves. It is what she represents, the part of himself he never could embody. And in that longing, he is not seeking connection. He is seeking completion. The same occurs with women. They grew up hearing they had to be sweet, understanding, modest, power, anger, firmness. Those impulses were not welcomed. So the animus is shaped, an idealized masculine figure, confident, dominant. And when a man appears carrying that energy, she does not think, she surrenders. But here lies the danger. What is projected is not seen clearly. It is idealized, it is romanticized, it is turned into an idol, even when it should serve as a warning. Do you understand now why so many overwhelming passions have that taste of enchantment, of illusion? Because it is not about the other, it is about you, about a hidden fragment of your soul, finally reflected like in a dark mirror. And what happens when you fall in love with a mirror? You see yourself, or more precisely, you see what you never had the chance to become. Yet there is an even deeper figure in this psychological dance, the shadow. The shadow is everything you refuse in yourself, everything denied, rejected, condemned. Your secret fantasies, your restrained anger, your envy, your fear, your misunderstood eroticism, all that you locked away in a cage just to survive morality, culture, family. But the cage is not secure, only hidden. And at some point, the shadow escapes, often escaping as desire, as that impulse you cannot explain, that attraction for someone who goes against everything you claim to want. That person carries, without knowing it, a fragment of your shadow. And that is why you are drawn, why you are consumed. Jung said, "We do not relate to people, but to unconscious contents. And until you know your shadow, you will remain its slave. You will love what destroys you, desire what imprisons you, call destiny what is nothing more than psychic programming." But there is something even more unsettling. Imagine someone who, instead of being lived by their shadow, learns to control it, to manipulate it, to use it. That person becomes dangerous, not because of malice, but because of awareness. They perceive what attracts you. They know how to summon your ghosts, and consciously or not, they turn into the embodiment of your anima or your animus just to capture you. They become exactly what you seek to feel complete, and then they possess you. That is the darkest point of Jungian theory of attraction. You do not fall in love with the one you love. You fall in love with the one who embodies your unconscious. And if that person desires, they can dominate you entirely, without even raising their voice. Think of it. How many times have you longed for someone who made no sense, who caused you pain, yet still fascinated you, who pushed you away and still pulled you back? Perhaps it was never love, perhaps it was your shadow guiding you. And if that were true, if it was the most hidden part of you that chooses who you are drawn to, then desire is not free, it is conditioned. But there is a path out. Jung calls us toward individuation, the process of becoming whole, of recognizing anima and animus within, of looking at the shadow without fear, of integrating what was once denied. When that happens, something shifts. You stop searching in others for what you lack. You stop falling for phantoms and begin to love real people with flaws, but also with presence. You realize love is not about completion. It is about overflow. And desire, when born from integration, is no longer compulsion. It is choice. Yet to arrive there, you must descend. Descend into the very parts you avoided most. Speak with the ghosts that whisper your darkest cravings, and instead of repressing them, understand them. For only the one who knows their shadow can truly love in the light. And perhaps, only perhaps, real pleasure is not in being desired, but in finally recognizing yourself as whole, without needing to dissolve in another. There is a peculiar silence that takes over the body after the one you love departs. A silence not of surprise, but of recognition, as if something in you knew from the very beginning that ending was already written. And still, you stayed. How many times have you found yourself trapped in relationships that hurt but never release? How many times has your longing screamed for someone who only knew how to deny you? You say it is love, that it is passion, that it is intense, but Jung would have given it another name: emotional repetition. You are not loving the person. You are trying to win an ancient war with a new soldier. The conscious mind believes it is choosing, but the soul is repeating, rewriting scenes, changing the actors, but keeping the same script. Jung said that until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that is exactly what happens in what he named a complex, an emotional nucleus, often traumatic, that activates like a magnet, an inner code screaming, "Find someone who will make me relive this, but with a different ending." But the ending rarely changes, because whoever still acts from the wound can only choose through the eyes of the child who suffered. Do you understand what this means? That the love that destroys you may not be an error. It may be a misguided attempt at healing, unconscious, tragic. And this does not only happen to men. How many women keep falling in love with inaccessible men? Men who are thrilling, intense, dominant, yet cold. Men who flatter with the same intensity they ignore, who ignite the fire and then leave the room in darkness. These women say, "I don't know why I always choose the wrong ones. The good ones bore me. I like the difficult ones." But behind that, there is a girl who learned that love must be conquered, that she must be good, sensual, smart, incredible, to deserve attention. A girl who perhaps grew up with a father who gave affection only when she excelled, or who simply was never present. So today, that woman is not seeking affection. She is seeking redemption. She is seeking to prove she can be loved by someone who refuses, someone who makes her feel like in childhood. That is called love. But it is not love. It is trauma, dressed as romance. And what makes it more cruel is that the body joins the game. The chemistry responds, desire ignites, butterflies appear, but they come from the empty stomach of affection. You think it is connection, but it is deprivation, recognizing a pattern. When trauma is not healed, it programs your radar, and your radar will guide you straight toward whoever can recreate your pain with the unconscious hope that this time it will be different. But it rarely is, because you are still trying to heal with the very poison that once made you sick. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, a force that blindly pushes us to relive the same scripts, the same impossible loves, the same abusive dynamics, the same illusions, as if every new encounter were in fact a desperate attempt to rewrite the ending of a story already closed. And as long as you do not see this, you will continue confusing pain with intensity, You will continue to call soulmate the one who is nothing more than the reflection of an old ghost. Yet there is a way out, and it does not begin outside. It does not begin by changing partners. It begins by turning inward with courage, with rawness, with brutal honesty. You need to ask yourself, does this desire come from healing or from hunger? Do I want this person, or do I only want what is represented? Am I loving, or am I simply trying to solve something that remained open in childhood? Those questions are not easy. They shake the ground beneath you, but they also reveal the doorway. Because real love, the one that frees, the one that builds, the one that warms, does not emerge from lack. It is born from presence, from awareness. And when you love from awareness, desire is no longer prison. It is selection. It is encounter. It is light, even if it is deep. You no longer need to repeat the past. You can honor it, listen to it, heal it, and then choose differently. Not because you are tired of pain, but because you finally understood it was never love. It was only a cry for healing. And now perhaps you are ready to listen. Not all seduction comes from love. Sometimes it is born from fear. Sometimes it is a golden armor, shining, sensual, and yet still armor. Because when someone discovers they can control the other through desire, tenderness yields its place to strategy, and what is called romance becomes theater, a game between broken mirrors. Jung showed us that seduction is not always spontaneous. It can be an unconscious choreography of defense, a way of controlling the other before being hurt. And so many learn that to be noticed, they must shine, be desirable, irresistible, because simply being themselves was never enough. Later, their sensuality becomes weapon. They discover that by becoming object of desire, they control the affection once missing. But it is not love they seek. It is control. It is domination. It is not to depend on anyone, but to make everyone depend on them. They do not want to be loved. They want to be needed, to have the other kneel emotionally, so that never again will they be the rejected child. And the other feels the charm, the magnetism, the consuming desire. But what is seen is not the real person, only projection of one's own lack, of what was repressed, of shelter never found. Without knowing, one embodies the archetype the other has been waiting for all life. Yet the real being carries wounds, abysses, pain. And thus the encounter turns into spectacle. One desires as if it were salvation. The other manipulates as if it were revenge. And what could be love becomes war. There are also those who learn that power comes from absence, that the more distant they are, the more desired they become. They confuse coldness with strength, use silence as weapon, feed insecurity with measured doses of attention, just enough to keep dependence alive. They do not want a partner, they want reflection, validation, someone to make them feel like gods, because deep down, they remain unseen children, never validated in essence, and now needing idolatry. When they meet someone hungry for affection, who mistakes rejection for challenge, they know exactly what to do. They give love at first, appear present, intense, hypnotic, but once the other surrenders, they vanish or grow cold. The cycle repeats. One is hooked on domination, the other on hope. Love becomes performance, intimacy, illusion. Jung would call this the trap of the unconscious, a game where each wears the mask of the other, not from malice, but from pain. And the more pain lies behind seduction, the stronger it becomes, because desire born of the wound sounds louder than real love. And you listening now, how many times have you found yourself in that dance? How many times did you long for someone who made you feel small? How many times did you mistake coldness for depth? How many times believed that the harder someone was to conquer, the more special it must be? But here is an uncomfortable truth. Love is not a prize. It is presence. And any bond that needs games to stay alive was born, already dying. Listen carefully. There are people who do not know how to love. They only know how to retain, to seduce, to dominate. But to love, no. Because love demands vulnerability. And for those who grew in hostile environments, being vulnerable is dangerous. That is why many prefer to control rather than love. They prefer to keep you on the tightrope of desire rather than allow you to see who they really are. And if you too grew up without safe love, you will mistake this game for passion. You will think that emotional highs and lows are signs of connection, but it is only adrenaline, addiction, trauma disguised as romance. So observe closely who attracts you. Do they truly see you, or do they use you as mirror? Do they love you, or only love the power they hold over you? And more important, do you love them, or are you only fighting an old battle that never began in this relationship? Do not blame yourself if you were ever caught in that cycle. Almost everyone has been. What matters is what you do with awareness. Seduction is not the problem, but when it is used as disguise for lack or as weapon of revenge, it ceases to be dance and becomes prison. Real intimacy begins when the game ends, when you no longer need to be desired to feel worthy, when you no longer need to manipulate to feel loved. And maybe the love you seek only appears when masks fall, when you stop performing, when you look at